I'm Gwen with Friends of Great Salt Lake, and today I'm going to walk you through our Watershed model activity. Remember that a model is like a smaller scale version of something, so our model today is going to be based on the Great Salt Lake Watershed. I've printed off the instructions for this project, which you can find on our website. You can also just follow along with the video. Then I also have this map of the Great Salt Lake Watershed, which you can find on our website as well. I think it's fun to be able to reference throughout this project, especially as we're adding in details towards the end. We're going to start with just a few simple materials. First, we're going to need a molding material, and I'll be using the sand here at the Great Salt Lake, but you can also use things like rice or oats or flour. And then you're going to need some detail materials for the end of our project. So I have with me some sticks and some feathers from the seagulls here at Great Salt Lake, different rocks just to add in some fun details at the end. We're going to make a bowl shape with our molding material. So I'm going to start digging out a hole here in this oolitic sand, and you want to make sure that you have a low point in the middle of your bowl, and that's going to represent the Great Salt Lake, and the ridges around your bowl are going to represent the different mountains that surround the lake. Here on the north we have the Promontory Peninsula. On the east we have the Wasatch Mountains. On the south of the Great Salt Lake we have the Ochre Mountains, and on the west we have the Stansbury Mountains. Next, we're going to add in our three major rivers that come into the Great Salt Lake down from the mountains. They're all coming in from the east, but the northernmost river is the Bear River, and I'm just going to create a little divot in my sand just with my finger, but you could also use like a trail of raisins or a stick to represent the river. The Bear River is super important because it's contributing 60% of the water that we find in the Great Salt Lake. Next, I'm going to make a divot for the Weber River, which is coming straight on from the east. And then lastly, I'll make a divot for the Jordan River, which is coming in from the southeast. These rivers are really important to the Great Salt Lake for a few reasons. One being that they're carrying all kinds of minerals and sediments down from the mountains along with the water. So the water that they carry into the Great Salt Lake, that will evaporate and kind of switch out over time, but all the minerals and sediments are going to stay. And you'll notice that the Great Salt Lake is a terminal lake, so there are no rivers that can carry any of those minerals or sediments out, and that is what makes the Great Salt Lake so salty. Next, we're going to move on to our detail portion of our project, which I think is really fun. I'm going to start off with some sticks to create state lines, and I really like showing state lines because it gives us a better idea of just how big the Great Salt Lake Watershed is. It actually covers 22,000 square miles, and the Great Salt Lake is the lowest point in all of that area, which I think is crazy. First, I'm going to place this stick here to represent the border between Utah and Idaho, kind of on the north side. And then I'm going to have another stick over here, which will represent the line between Wyoming and Utah. And then next, I'm going to use one of these flat rocks that I found here on the Great Salt Lake beach to just kind of fill in my Great Salt Lake so you can see it there. And I'm going to use this smaller rock to represent Antelope Island, which is right behind me actually, and is the biggest island in all the Great Salt Lake. I'm going to use this stick to represent the Smelter Tower here at Great Salt Lake. That is actually the tallest building on the west side of the Mississippi. Then I have these seagull feathers that I'm going to use to represent the different cities that are in the watershed. So here we have Salt Lake City, Ogden, and up here we have Logan. I love adding in the cities just so you can kind of see where you live in relation to the Great Salt Lake and maybe which river you're getting your water from. All these rivers that are coming down to the Great Salt Lake is how we get the water that's in our showers and sinks or sprinklers. And if we're using a ton of that water, then there won't be enough left to make it into the Great Salt Lake, right? Like we'll use up all the water before it ever has a chance to make its way down here. Right now, the Great Salt Lake is actually getting smaller. It's shrinking because of the growing population in all of these cities. Think about how much water you're using, how much water your school is using, or different businesses around where you live. It's important to think about ways that we can conserve water so that we can preserve this very important Watershed model project. I hope you had a